and the world over. We engage in debates and discussions that unearth the stories behind the news. And we have our light moments too by chit-chatting about issues that affect our day-to-day life. We stay right here on the Sundown. Join in and be part of the show on iRadio, your eye on South Sudan. The Sundown. For the news, views, opinion, debates, and discussions. Listen to who is who talking about issues that affect our country and continent. Only on the Sundown, your eye on South Sudan.
Hello and welcome to the first hour of the Sundown Show on iRadio with me, Madrama James. Today, we turn our focus to education, one of the most pressing issues in South Sudan. Despite various interventions, the country still faces some of the lowest literacy rates in the world, with thousands of children, especially girls, out of school. To help these challenges address, the National Examination Coalition has launched a new initiative titled Enhancing Education Advocacy and Multi-Stakeholders Dialogue in South Sudan. The project aims to use media platform, particularly radio, to raise awareness, strengthen public engagement, and create a space for open dialogue between policy makers, civil society, teachers, and learners. Well, I am joined live in the studio with two panelists, an education official and a representative of that civil society right here. And we will talk more about this and how South Sudan can build a stronger and more inclusive education system. Angelo Lubang, National Election Coalition Board Chair, and Knight and Agnes John is an Inclusion Officer, all of whom are with me in the studio right here. And good to have you. First, let me begin by asking each of you, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing South Sudan's education sector today? Let me first start with you. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much, iRadio. My name is Agnes Wani. I work for the National Education Coalition as the Gender and Inclusion Officer. Yeah, one of the biggest challenge that is facing the education sector, according to me, in South Sudan, looking at the experiences that we have had with basically the communities that we work with, the local people in our communities that we work with, we have seen so many challenges that faces the education sector of South Sudan, of which one of them is the issue to do with barriers that hinders children living with disability. I have had an encounter in WOW one day when I was having a capacity development workshop that brought together persons with disability, and one of the encounter was a child told me he always feels bad when he goes to school. Every morning when he passes from the neighborhood, you hear that the mother of the kids will say in Arabic, "Tal, you come and see this person that has one arm." You get? So that is one challenge that is really affecting the persons living with disability. And then also the other issue related to the persons living with disability is how we describe them, how we call them. Often stigmatizes them. They feel bad, especially in classes whereby you nickname. Children are given names that make them fear come back to school. The other issue is gender inequality. Today, in the context of South Sudan, we still experience gender inequality of high level. You find that children are given different opportunities according to their genders. You get? A boy child goes to school and the girl child remains home. You find that girls are very few in class, and girls are often sent to early marriage, okay, affecting them from accessing education. You get, I'll add one point and then I'll give it to my colleague to also add his views. The other issue is the issue of structures in school. You find that there are some structures that are built, our school compounds, that does not support children living with disability, no access to this environment. Even when you look at our latrines, the way they are built, they don't give the privilege for a child that is living with disability to go and attend education. These are some of the biggest challenges that I feel as Agnes that I have encountered in South Sudan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Angelo. Let's first start with the correction, then, of course, your take on the challenges. Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity. We are happy to have this privilege and share and discuss on these key elements in education. So I am Angelo Paterno, known as Angelo Lubank. In particular, I am the National Education Coalition board chairperson and also the country director of Help a Child International. So Help a Child is the one chairing the board of the National Education Coalition.
You're welcome.
And I think going deeper into the key challenges or the bigger challenges of education, there are basically elements that are more into the access and then the quality aspect, but also the management aspect of the school or the system. So, and when we talked about in terms of access, I think Agnes mentioned some of them. There are still schools in this country learning under trees. There are still schools that are difficult to reach because you cannot cross the streams when it rains. There are still schools in this country that have really facilities that do not even support girls in terms of the access to wash facilities, especially in the schools. So there are barriers, but also there are practices that are still, making challenges to children to access education.
What are those challenges?
So when you look at the girls, issues of child marriage has really highlighted, and the issues also of support from parents and the role also parents play. Education system is not only about the government, because the government can come with the policies, and policies are to be implemented. And when in the process of implementation, there are roles and responsibilities each one take. Of course, the bigger roles are really in the government because as a duty bearer, but also the people who have the rights, they have a role to play. And those challenges are really making the system and education quality affected. The issue also around the quality of the teachers, the quality of teachers we have teaching in the schools, in the rural communities in particular, and then also the element of regular payment of these teachers. Because if you are a teacher and you don't get that payment, commitment to delivering really quality education matters, because you also as a teacher, you have children who need to go to school and they need their demands of education need to be covered. So when you look at those, I think those are the key elements that can affect the quality of education in terms of access, but also the quality aspect.
Okay, let's talk briefly about the quality teachers and community support also. Communities often complain of underfunded and poorly managed schools. How is the government addressing governance and accountability, more especially in the education sector?
Of course, education is a sector that is really coming up, because earlier I think prioritization of education became a problem, given the dynamic situation a country went through. So if there are conflicts, education is always forgotten. And that is a challenge. But now really a lot of efforts is being put in place from the government, reviewing the policy, looking into the curriculums, and strengthening the systems to monitor the element of evaluation in terms of education, having exams, but also the challenges, of course, are more related to really results being processed and produced in time. But of course, those are shortcomings that need us to put our hearts and hands together to make sure we address them. And of course, National Education Coalition is working closely with the government. We are like almost the bridge between the community and the government in terms of the policies implementation, but also advocating for what obligation the government has, especially in the Red Book, which is the Education Act, which really said the government or the Ministry of Education has to meet a certain percentage in terms of the budget. Of course, there are also challenges in terms of having the budget, but also having that budget being released is also a challenge. We're working together with the ministry And then as a civil society representative, checking on how this can be, addressed, because donors can still give their money, commit, and I see a lot of commitment coming up, but still as the government need to play a role, because the issues of teachers' payment and strengthening the systems, the monitoring, the inspections at a different level in the states, the counties, and the PIAM need to be strengthened, so that's how the quality is. If a teacher is not monitored, then you don't expect the quality. No. So there's a lot that need to happen. And the government is trying its best, but also we call for really participation of everyone, because it's a responsibility. It's not a matter of sending a child to school, that's the end. But there's a lot that we need to do to monitor this child. Is it going to school? We can also provide the support. We know the literacy level is quite low, but still, when you make a concern as a parent, that's the role you can play. Did you go to school? What have you done? So when we play it more holistically, we can transform the education system. But when we wait to point fingers and say who and so that did not play their role, did not play a role, that's where we can easily still keep on the same cycle. But it's good to have a commitment and work together. Of course, there's always the leadership in everything, and that is the role of the ministry, but need stakeholders to play their role as well.
Lubanga, before I invite Agnes, now how can also community play a very positive role in a situation where there's a displacement and some other areas are flooded, and these are natural disasters, by the way?
I think because in those calamities, in some of the communities, take an example in Jongle or in Pibor, when it is flooding, education that use as like a safe haven, people can relocate and occupy the school. But it will affect the education system. If flooding happened, of course, it affect the whole entire learning. So that is supposed to be taken as, not something for refuge or not something maybe for any other calamities that happened, and then the school should be disorganized. So people should map where do we go when it is, flooding. Not really schools being disorganized because of the situation. Let the learning continue, and that is why the National Education Coalition is advocating for education also as a priority. It's part of an emergency.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, Agnes, you would like to add something? Welcome.
On what he has said, I think he has spoken almost everything, and it's very clear, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So the government is doing a lot of its work. They're really managing a lot of things, though with a lot of challenges also. One thing the government is doing right now currently that I am really aware of is they are implementing the accelerated learning programs. That program is directly targeting the overage group of learners. I went to WOW and I did a mapping, and I realized there are so many youths that are engaged in this program, and it's really very good. And it's also supporting learners that have not achieved greater qualifications in education, especially the youths. You get the other role that the government is really trying to play so hard, especially the Ministry of General Education, is working closely with its partners. Like at the National Education Coalition, there's no way we can work without the influence of the government. We ensure that any step that we take, we involve the government. And then we support them technically in areas that we think, as the coalition, we can put in our efforts to see that we advance the quality of education in South Sudan. We do a lot of campaigns with them, in collaboration with them. We raise a lot of awareness in regards to education in the country. Also, there are a lot of, like, for example, policy review. They make sure they involve the members of the coalition. And then we also, like 1 month ago, you can correct me if I don't tell the right thing. 1 month ago, we had a national conference that brought together all the stakeholders, the education stakeholders from the 10 states and the 3 administrative areas, just because we believe that collectively we can work with the government to ensure that we advance quality education in South Sudan. And they responded. These are some of the efforts that the government is putting to ensure that they work hand in hand with the civil society to advance education in South Sudan,
Okay.
though with a lot of challenges. Yeah.
Yes, in providing all this support, Agnes, from your perspective, what are the main barriers that prevent communities from participating in education decision making? And of course, they are supposed to own the school. They are supposed to play a very positive role. You said you have traveled to WOW and you have, of course, obtained some first-hand information from them.
Okay. One challenge that is limiting the communities to participate in decision making is some of them are not informed. That is why, as the coalition, we ensure that we do capacity strengthening to stakeholders, to PTA, okay, to members of the CSOs members. We have also moved ahead to formed a group of young people in WOW that are together, collectively working together to ensure that they do advocacy around areas that affect education, especially in the state, which is WOW. Okay? So one factor that is affecting them is they are not informed. Okay? And then the other factor is the issue of resources. You see, funds. Funds is an issue. Though they say resources, personal resources is very important for you to move forward, but then looking from the other angle, we really need resources like money to advance our work, to move forward. So these are some few of the challenges that I noticed. And then the other challenge that is limiting them is the cultural norms. They believe that I cannot sit in decision making. And then others feel even if they come, they cannot be heard. Like, for example, the persons living with the persons with disability, they feel like even if I come to decision making, I cannot be heard. You get no access, okay, no first-hand information. So, as the coalition, we make sure we build. Okay, we build the capacity of these stakeholders so that they can participate in decision making. Yeah.
And we have seen some other better examples, let's say from Sudan, where parents can also come erect structures for as a teacher's quarter for schools, and if there are issues within the school, the PTA can also come and address some of those challenges amicably with the teachers for better or quality education. And why is it this kind of initiative not happening in our country? And this does not even require, much resources. You said one of the challenges is limited resources, and this does not even require a lot. Why?
I think, let me come in. The issue of the school governance, I think, is very important, because when you look at the structure of the government, it goes up to the grassroots.
Exactly.
If you are to say, for example, the Ministry of Education, which is the key, player in terms of education as a sector, it has a system, as a governance system rolling up to the PM, and it is this system that are to be made functional. And right now, the government is trying to put that. Because if the system is functioning up to the lower level, even it will go up to the schools. So donors can support, in terms of putting structure. The government can even say putting structure. But at the end of the day, it's really the community that is to be responsible of that. It's the community that can destroy the school. It's the community that can safeguard the school. It's the community that can ensure even the quality of education in the role they play. A teacher, even if he's paid, incentive on time, I know it is a challenge now, but they still need an environment where he can feel that he's welcome, and that is really especially strengthening the governance at the school level, from the different levels of government to the schools, by having the school management committees, by establishing these PTAs, and then NEC work closely with the structures, with the teachers' union. I think establish a body that is supposed to oversee that and help make sure this system are working. Of course, it's still a challenge, but it's already a step ahead of that to make sure that what is outlined in the policy, but also in the plan, in the strategy of the ministry, is really implemented.
Yeah, right. Now, what is NEC doing to ensure inclusivity, especially for learners with disabilities and those in affected areas as well?
I think one element is really advocacy, because on the rights of people with a disability, And the advocacy has to go, across all board. When you take a school as an example, in terms of access, in the classrooms, you provide, a simple way how a person with a disability can easily access the class. A person with disability can easily access the wash facilities by providing a ramp for them to go. That's where it has to begin, because it should not have the barrier, to address the barrier that really make them. But also the community, because some of the children who are living with disability are denied not to go to school because is a person having vision impairment or a person having challenges in terms of, and then they say no, they are hidden. They don't value them, that, disability is not inability, is what people talk to most of the time. And we can only help the community by creating awareness to them. And NEC work with a network of over 180 partners, education players. And these are the people who can generate information, who can collect information and inform. So we get that information for our evidence base, and they are working. Also, we try to work with them to make sure these are the areas that they need to target. And in creating the awareness in their programs. So we reach almost all parts of South Sudan, because we are partners in implementing and monitoring schools' functional aspect in the different locations.
Agnes, over to you. How can civil society organization work with the government to strengthen school governance and accountability?
I think we can work together in a joint advocacy, supporting them. And then we can also, like I said before, the civil society and the government, especially the civil society, can support the government technically on issues that needs expertise. You get? So, like what my colleague said, we cannot work alone without the government. Okay? So, we can also help work with the government, especially on policy-related issues. You see, the civil society carries a very big voice to identify gaps that are relevant, especially on policies. Identifying gaps related to learners in school, related to teachers, related to the persons with disability. And then we come in to give guidance on how we can work closely, leaving no one behind. Okay? And one thing with the government is they listen to you when you also listen to them. So that is the strategy we use at NEC as a civil society network, to work closely with the government to amend the gaps that we think cannot move us forward. You get? Yeah. That is what I can add.
Now, looking at some other report in the country, about 2.8 million children are out of school. And a question via our Facebook page, Ayok is asking, what are predetermined strategies NEC is using to make sure that there is a quality education in this country? And at the same time, there's already a gap. What is really NEC doing?
Thank you. As I earlier mentioned, NEC work with a network of over 180 partners, all the national and international organizations that are implementing education or supporting education in different parts of the country. We work with them. And also, we play a role in terms of the policy and the plan also review from the government, because National Education Coalition and its members are actually filling the gaps in the government. Of course, the government has right now is really getting a lot of support, funding to address the gaps that are already existing in education, transforming the system, education system, aspect of the quality and the issue of access to education, especially in terms of education learning facilities. So that is what we can play and make sure these targeting projects should also look the most disadvantaged places that are not really getting these services, that are not getting this support regularly. And that is we review in terms of planning. We can just give an example like the Global Partnership for Education (GPE) funding, which is already the process of calling for proposals, is already under UNICEF, which is the grant management. We are part of the process in making sure the allocation is across all the different components of education are ensured. We are also part of the decision making and review process, especially before this project was approved. And that's why Agnes mentioned earlier, we work closely with the ministry because to see what are the priorities. The ministry has the priorities, but also there are priorities that are informed by the information collected by different partners from the different field locations. And that helps us in terms of identification which location need. For the GPE, to give the direct example, is targeting counties that are more disadvantaged. You can take from Jongole or Greater Jongole, you can say Pachala is one of the area, Bibor is one of the area. And across all other states, they are selected. In Central Equatoria, they look at the Yei, it's because of the situation in Yei, apart. And then at these states, selected counties that have never get it. Because it's also, you'll find if it is not based on the information collected from the grassroots, but also from the ministries at the state level, then we will allocate it wrongly.
All right.
So,
and we have Francis from WOW, Francis Andriano. His question centered on inclusivity, that if really NEC is working closely with the government, and now have you ever tried to maybe ask the government to add subject like inclusion to the curriculum of both that's secondary and primary school, so that pupil and students are aware of including their fellow who are disabled instead of bullying them? And as such, he has witnessed this bullying going on in various schools. Over to you. Let me first start with Agnes and then over to okay. Welcome.
Yeah, I think the government policy is clear. Inclusion is one of the key, and that's why they said access to inclusive quality education. So the policy is talking about that. The strategic plan of the ministry is talking about that. And prioritization of inclusion in the strategy is really a key element. And is really coming up because it's one of the key elements, because leaving these people behind and there are people who can contribute to this nation in one way or the other is actually inclusion and the element of the early childhood, which is foundational education, which were left behind. And these are the one considered as priorities, especially for the GPE. So inclusion is key, and inclusion has to cut across, whether it is in the class or access to the class, but also in terms of the quality teachers training. Look at that. And that's why the code of conduct is also part of the training, to make sure the environment in the school is inclusive. The environment in the class is inclusive. And who is in the class is the learner, who is these people, including those who with disability. And the teachers should look at them as equal, not naming them, because we also know that it is a kind of a stigma that is happening. So that awareness around the schools is the role also of the schools, which I think the ministry is trying to address through different actors in education, and especially spearheaded by county and PAYAM education officials, to make sure they are supporting, and they are also monitoring the teachers in terms of their conduct.
Yeah.
All right.
To add briefly on that, as NEC, we have also some advocacy priorities that we are also working towards achieving them. We as the network, we want to see that there's teacher management, and teacher management comes with a lot of aspects. How do we have teachers that manage, especially children, persons with disability? Do you have teachers that can teach the blind, can teach children that are deaf? Okay. And then
something like a barrel in schools.
Those are some of the priorities that we are also looking closely to as our advocacy priorities. Also, the issue of access to structures. Access to structures, not only the classroom, even the toilets. Is it inclusive? Does it give the privilege to every child to access? Okay? And does the school environment support learners of all genders or of all status? You get. We also want to see that there is disability inclusion in school. Things to do with, like every time I go for workshops, I tell participants, we are all the same. You don't need to bully, to mock. Is it mocking or bullying a child that is with disability? It's wrong, okay? And this starts all from the family level, like from the parents. You need to educate your children to see the other children with disability as same. You see, everything starts from, that's why the parents are the first key stakeholders to our advocacy. Okay, yeah. And then also the last advocacy priority that we are really looking up to is education financing.
All right.
Yeah.
Now let's take another quick comment. Lomondia is happy to hear that NEC is also engaging with the government so that his school is prioritized. Now his concern is you need to keep up doing this initiative for engagement. For example, he is left out from joining university due to that high tuition. And he is also appealing for that some more awareness so that there is a reform in education sector and education can be accessible to everyone. What's your take, both of you?
I think education has so many priorities. Until you reach that level of a university, still is a priority. And we are trying to focus much more into really, let's say, basic education, which is more or less targeting into which has so many challenges, I think. And we know the university also have the same scenarios, but we are beginning from there and then we will roll out, because these stakeholders, even the university, they play a role. And I remember in the conference Agnes mentioned that brought all representatives from different states and the 3 administrative areas, even the academia were part of it. And this academia is still, they need to play a role. And these are the people who can help us in terms of even, molding teachers who are to provide that quality education. And if it does not, there's a kind of a cut between the basic education and the university or tertiary, then that still is a problem. So we want to make sure the foundation is strong, and the foundation can also be influenced by this higher level of education, because some of the teachers, I know today even very few people who like to go to be teachers in the university. The profession is left. I am one of the teachers who dropped out, but I'm doing it in a different way. I'm not in the class, but I'm trying to help also education in a different way. So we are supposed to get teachers, trainees, students to come and do teaching practice in the schools, in the primary school, and that's how they can understand what does it mean to be a teacher. Not only graduating, but I think it's also a step that can be taken in terms of advocacy. And of course, that is to be taken now with the Ministry of Higher Education. But we are dealing at this particular level with the Ministry of General Education and Instruction, which is more on the basic, but also with the parliamentarian, especially the Committee of Education or the Specialized Committee for Education, because we are part of the body that is playing, a kind of building the bridge between the two. Because what is discussed in the parliament, even if it is a policy, it still is approved by the parliament. So they need to speak to each other. And that is the role that we are playing really together. And we are happy that there's already harmony coming. So that means even if it is also the budget that is more related to the Ministry of General Education and Instruction, it's easier to pass from that level, but on an informed aspect. That similarly may go also to the higher education. So that need that support, because that body is the one to look at the issues that he is highlighting. Sometimes also the teachers, the lecturers are not paid on time, and that can easily affect. But the issue of tuition is actually to be influenced much more from that level.
Okay. James Siata from WOW, his concern is centered on the area of advocacy. There is need to him of teaching teachers, especially more special teachers who can deliver a lesson to pupils or learners with the special needs. And at the moment, if you look at the school structures, others cannot accommodate pupils or learners with a special need, and sign language interpreters in the countries are very few. Now, in terms of advocacy, what's NEC doing to address some of this gap? Welcome.
I think at NEC level, we are trying our best to do more advocacy on these areas that questions are being raised on referring back to the national conference that we had, during the conference we managed to come out with a communique indicating most of the gaps, and it was not only done by NEC but in collaboration with all the stakeholders that were there. One of the things that came out very strongly is the issue of access and teachers to educate the persons with disability. I think the simple answer I can tell this person is the constant advocacy that we do and dialogue with the ministry is the best answer I can give him. So it's very good that they are popping out such questions so that we take note. Any meeting that happens, we outline and we share also as a gap, because we work also closely with the community and they are the community to raise such concerns, and then we forward. But what we do basically is capacity, we do advocacy around this area.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yes, dear, before we invite our patient audience, if you want to react in less
Yeah,
than
I
1
think
minute.
just to add on what Agnes said, we rely much more on the evidence-based advocacy, and we would like also to get more information into the issue of this inclusion, because inclusion really is important, because we don't want to see, okay, if this is a person with a vision impairment, has to be treated differently or has a separate class. That's not inclusion. So acceptance become a problem. We want they should be addressed there. The only thing they need to be supported with the materials on how they can. Even interpretation in terms of sign language, if a teacher is there, there's somebody should be for sign language will be there to interpret, not to take them to have a separate class. That is not what we want. Yeah.
Thank you very much. South Sudan continues to have some of the lowest literacy rates globally, with many children estimated to be at 2.8 still out of school. And to address this gap, I'm joined by officials from ANEC in the studio here. And if you are told you have a question or comment, call us on 0911 986.
It's a Baghdad Diamond Wenisuma iRadio ala nimrata telefon 0911 au itabi risala ala nimra 0913
نعم فرصة لك عشان أسأل سؤال ولا تعليق لضيوف بتاعي في داخل الاستوديو 09 ولا 22 986 لأنه في النهاية بتاع تعليم عدد بتاع لسه كثار في برا وبذب نقعد بعمل شنو مع حكومة عشان كيف مشاكلات البرو ناس بقدر هيلو كمان دور بتاع أبواد ومهات في محلات المختلف برو ناس ما من داو المخالمة أي راديو
Yeah, you are connected with Daniel Deng Chol from Wow.
Daniel Deng Chol from Wow. Good to have you.
Yeah, I need a song from Emmanuel Kembe, Together.
It's okay. All right. Thank you so much. We are talking about education, which is another pressing issue, coupled with this flooding, displacement, and a lot of things preventing many learners from accessing that quality education in the country. So, to address this gap, National Education Coalition has launched a new initiative called Enhancing Education Advocacy and Multi-Stakeholders Dialogue in South Sudan. Therefore, if you have a question or comment to my guest, 091122 right about here, and then they will be in position to answer your question. A couple of you have sent in your comment or questions via our Facebook page. Shortly, I will go through those messages. Hi, Radio. Now, my radio. Arja tani fi 09 wide wale 22 986 derina asuma baro kaman tuwajadal gad bielga abuad ومهاد في نهاية بتاع مدارس طبعا نينا بعرف لسه يال خطر في برا وما بيقدر يلقى مدرسة النسية ورايا بتاعك بكون شنو ولا سؤال بتاعك ولا تعليق لضيوف بتاعي في داخل الاستوديو. هاي راديو.
Madrama, good evening.
Good evening, Dian Deng.
Thank you, brother.
How is Wow?
Wow, tamam wala.
What's your question to my guest?
Yeah, actually, I will put it in narrative way. Yeah, Madrama, South Sudan is too much behind, and this is something that needs input from the authorities and even partners. Education has been ignored, and when I look at it, it's not a problem of the parents don't want to send the children to school. It's a problem of the no good education systems that is well set up by the government itself. And when you look at the partners who are also funding education, they are not also sincere in the way they are funding education, because you get that they are giving money to the schools, to children's girls. Instead of motivating teachers, they are giving children to the learners themselves, and get learners even being spoiled more. That modality thing I asked the guests is serious. Instead of, why do the guests want to give money to the learners instead of the teachers who are supposed to be motivated? Or else, why not education ministry don't want to engage the guests to make sure that the teachers are well motivated, especially teachers in primary schools. They need to be well paid, such that we need to see that the primary school is competitive. Well-educated gentlemen apply to be accepted in primary school as a teacher. Why should government not do that? Because if that thing done, I think it will help children learn very well. Another thing is that, why not government add more budget to the education? Should make sure that teachers are well paid. All problem now in South Sudan education system is government school being poor, and private school are after interest, because a businessman is a businessman. Somebody who is looking for a private profit is somebody after profit, and he will not get profit at least. Otherwise, he or she has more children in the school, and those more children in school, he cannot get them. At least he do some pushing, and that's why you get this issue of malpractice is now today in national examination across the country. It's not caused by government school. It is the private school who are coming up with these issues of malpractice, where the exam is being cheated, the exam is being pushed, and all this is happening because the private school want to compete, want to be a best school, so that next year the parents send their children to those schools that they are the best school. Health, they are cheating, they are stealing. What? Not that government is not putting more report on government school. The third of it is, why not the government supposed to make sure that all Payams and boomers have more schools? Because this is what is called grassroots, and this is where education need to be studied.
Thank you.
Get that the Payams and counties and all these are lack of schools. Children are learning under trees, and you get the school can open from early. After 3 months, they will close down because there will be no teacher again and there will be no child coming there. Why not government opening the eyes on those areas? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dian Deng, for asking those good questions. Yes, let me start with you, Labang. What's your reaction to a concern raised by Dian Deng from Wang?
Thank you, Deng Deng. I think you raise very good and crucial points. One of it is more related to guests and also teachers' payment, and the other one is more on the education budget. I think, of course, we try just to explain from our perspective, but this is a question that should be handled by the government. But as a partner, we can just give more light on what is really happening. Guests, particularly, is a project being, is a co-funded project. Is a project where a donor from UK is supporting, or the government of UK, and also the government of South Sudan is contributing. And it's basically is to accelerate girls' education. Is also retention of girls in schools because they have different needs. Their needs could be higher than those of boys, and that's why GES is there. And of course, the issue of teachers. I think the government, in our different engagement and discussion, I think on the teachers' payment, is a big issue. It's all about across the country. The government has put system in place. Of course, there are government at different levels. So teachers' payment is a priority right now. Of course, it was a challenge because a number of months teachers are not paid among other employees of the government. And now the government is just creating a system where teachers get the payment direct because they used to send to the state. You know? And now they have they have established technical bodies that are monitoring that. So the budget does not come direct to the Ministry of Education according to the information, but it goes to the state. And now it also has challenges at that level. And now instead of having different players in between, it goes to Angelo, it will go to Agnes, and it will go to that before it reaches the teachers. They just try to make it shortcuts and pay direct to teachers, and those teachers are to open their accounts, whether it is in Momo and all that. They are working on that. And I know that is going to work because it was one of the key elements discussed during the conference. And it is also in the communique. So we expect teachers to be paid really timely because they will be there, even if how little it is to be paid. And also partners also have a specific payment to teachers, especially incentive, which is normally discussed between the partners also, and then the NEC and the supporting agencies in that, and the rate is there. That one do not have a challenge, but is also to make sure teachers get that payment. If teachers are not paid, we don't see the quality. When it comes to the budget, I think the government put it clearly, is 10% of the overall budget is supposed to go for education. But it is not realistic. The budget can come, but releasing the budget is a challenge. And it is a challenge that we are also advocating and working together with them. So that should be addressed. If it is 10%, it's really good to get that 10%. But the reality is not coming out.
Right.
And it is what we need to engage and try to make sure it happened. So that the support goes to teachers and they are in the schools.
Yeah, right. 5 minutes to go, and still you can call us on 0911-022-986 and 986 right here. And you ask your good question. And for those who have taken their humble time again to write to us via our Facebook page, your opinion most welcome. And keep those messages coming right here. Now, let me hear from this. Hi, Radio.
Hi, Radio. How are you?
Tamam, community advisor.
Let me welcome the guest in the studio and the presenter of today.
Thank you. How is Madingbor?
Madingbor is very fine.
Yes, your
And
question to
sunshine
my
very well.
your question to my two
My question
analysts.
is very simple. What advice can you give it to the government of South Sudan? Yet, education sector is going up, and health is going up, and all the sectors within the government are going up. What advice
Of
can
how,
you give
like?
to the government? They are passing on. Let me put it that way. They are dying. Like education now is abandoned by specialists, and they left to those who are not really educationists. So what advice can you give it to those? Because the educationists aim higher, and non-educationists, they do what they can afford at that moment, and they cannot teach to expectations.
Yeah, right.
So like now you have seen, if there is much short, everybody is passing. If there is no much short, everybody is going up, because there is no accurate teaching in the school nowadays. What advice can you give it to the government, because education is going up and everything is going up?
Thank you, community
because of
advisor.
Welfare of teachers.
Thank
there
you.
is no welfare of teachers in the state and in the nation.
Thank you for asking that question from Jonglei State. Now, Martinez Bidal directed his question to Angelo Lobang, particularly that South Sudan has some of the lowest literacy rate in the world. What do you see as the biggest barriers preventing children from going to school today? That's via our Facebook page.
Thank you for that direct question.
Preferably, let me talk to this last caller.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
How are you in the studio?
Tamam, tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Yeah, you are speaking to Mayana Kot in Awil.
Yes, Mayana Kot, welcome. What's your question to my guest?
Yeah, your question to your guest in the studio. So I was greeting you all there in the studio.
Thank you.
And the program that was brought up is a good program. And it's okay on like this to bring the program so that we can share it, and then.
Oh, Thank you for appreciating the conversation. And because of time, let's wrap up. Let me start with Angelo. The question, what is really preventing children from going to school today? Welcome.
I think thank you for that question. What is preventing children from going to schools? I think there are so many. We already mentioned some of them. Some of them are really the literacy that is mentioned, the literacy level. But I can tell you our literacy level is improving. I remember as of 2014, the literacy level was around 27, but now it's really going to 37%. So that means there's improvement. But of course, it's a journey that needs your support. You also who is outside there, the listeners, you will need your support because education is a shared responsibility. Much as the government, the ministry play their role, but also we need to play our role at a different level. Because if we play our role, we will make sure we provide the right information to the government. Then we are prioritized in terms of whether it is teachers, whether it is access, and whether this is inclusion. The information is with us in the grassroots.
All right. The same question that how will this new initiative ensure that policies and resources are not just discussed but actually implemented on the ground?
I think that require diverse engagement, which NEC has already taken a step on, discussing with the ministry in terms of the planning perspective, and then looking into the gaps that their budget could not address, and trying to bring in projects that are funded by different donors to fit in, but also having a link with the parliament, because so that a clear discussion in terms of the budget of the country is really look at education could be a priority among those key priorities. Should be actually number one, if I'm not mistaken, because if we want to have doctors, we need education. If we want to have a very intelligent military personnel, they need education. So all of us need education to do our role well.
All right. As we are coming to the end of our discussion, I would like to invite Agnes. What message would you like to share with the learners, parents, and decision makers listening to us now?
Thank you so much. My message to learners is they should stay in school because that is their future. That's where their future belongs. Like my leader said, all of us need education. For me to become a doctor, I need education. Education is a backbone of our lives, not only for the country, but us personally, we need education. So I encourage each learner, despite challenges, we should stay in school. In fact, all of us you see today, we studied through challenges a lot, but we are here today because of education. The other message I can tell them is education is their right. It's not just a need. It's part of their life. So they should not feel like I am not supposed to be in school. Culture, norms, and beliefs can sometimes make you move away from school. But that is your right. That is part of your life. Stay in school. And then my message to parents, did you say parents? I encourage each parent to support their children's education, especially the girls and the children with disability. We should look at children as one. We shouldn't neglect children according to their status and their genders. I have seen a lot of children with disability that are really great people. So we should encourage them. We should not discourage them. The other one is parents should always engage with school and demand accountability. We should not just send children to school and we don't know what is happening in school. As parents, we have the right to seek for accountability.
Right.
And then to decision makers, I encourage decision makers. You're doing a great job, despite the challenges we are facing in South Sudan. But decision makers are really trying. So I encourage that you increase education funding. Okay, to meet our legal mandate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Angela, over to you. I know this project has a lot of stakeholders, and if there's one message you'd like to pass out to these stakeholders to ensure that this project is realized, this project unleashes, of course, its potential for excellency, what would be that?
I think the most important thing to people who have a key role in education is to play their role with the really commitment and seriousness to make sure whatever contribution you're making is earning results, because we have heard about the challenges and we keep on talking about the same challenges. Now is the time for actions. So as each one of us plays his role, we need to put our country at the forefront. We need to put our children at the forefront. And it is only education that can get us through. It is education that can help us in transforming this country. So transformative education is what is the government aspiration, and the government cannot achieve it alone. We need to all us to play our role at a different level. Thank you.
Thank you all, Agnes, Angelo, for coming, dear listener, up to here. We have come to the end of our conversation focusing on education and how best can this new initiative be realized in the country. I've been your host, Madrama James. Pleasure to be with you.